Hello, my name is Ivana Uwade, and I'm the creator of the Facebook group page JK Lifestyle and Travel. Today, we have with us Genaya Palmer. She's a licensed associate counselor and art therapist. She graduated from Caldwell University in May 2020. She earned a master's of arts in clinical mental health counseling and art therapy. Genaya has experience working with children and adolescents in bereavement, college students in disability services, and adults in inpatient behavioral health units. Believes in the healing power of creative expression across the human lifespan. She's also a team leader of the New Jersey Hope and Healing Crisis Counseling Program at the Mental Health Association. In this role, Genaya and her colleagues currently provide emotional support and grief counseling to anyone impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. That's one of the reasons why I really wanted to speak to you, because I feel like this pandemic has really challenged a lot of us.
Mhm.
And I wanted you to speak about some of the challenges that we face.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for having me on here to talk about some of the effects. It's really a privilege to be here. So my team and I, we were given a grant through our agency since September 2020, and we've been able to provide some of the things that you mentioned, brief individual supportive counseling services to all ages. And, we've seen and heard so many different things from different age groups. So from children, adolescents, adults, older adults, many of them really faced challenges when it came to the multiple lockdowns that we've encountered due to the pandemic. Recognizing that isolation was a very key thing that impacted a lot of their mental health. The disruption in their routine. So as human beings, we got used to going up and getting up for work or getting up for school, or even just getting up to do certain activities. That became our routine, whether we loved it or not. And to have a big disruption in that, that really disrupted how we thought, how we act, and how we interacted with one another. One of the biggest things that we also heard was the loss of human connection. So I don't know if you could think back to 2020, when we were still trying to figure things out in the world. We didn't know what was going to happen, and the best thing that we thought we could do, of course, was to isolate, in a sense, not see each other, try to stay at home at all times. And that, when I want to say, that really significantly impacted a number of people's mental health, because a lot of stress, worry, anxiety, that just built up in so many people. And I find that feelings of grief and loss were some of the things that really tied us together, meaning that a number of people, recognized that they weren't able to celebrate beginnings or endings, whether that was like graduations or retirements together. And that just looked very different. Or even just natural grief and loss that's faced by losing a loved one, whether that was due to, actual COVID-19 or other circumstances, and having to almost celebrate their lives or have funerals or rituals in a different capacity. So many people really voice their concerns about that. And oftentimes when we're talking to them, these are the things that were coming up. And we try to also provide tips of how to de-stress and how to kind of cope with what they're facing.
I think that's one of the things that really impacted me. It was the uncertainty, not knowing about employment, not knowing how that can affect my life. And like you said, the isolation, not being able to connect with different people. I mean, and then the things that you take for granted, getting together on the holidays, just going to a movie. I mean, it could be a hazard to your health. It was those type of things that you had to experience. For the first time in my life, I had to be concerned about that. So.
Absolutely. I can relate to that as well. Like even simple things like going out to eat, such a simple thing, whether that's with yourself or with a group of people that you really enjoy. And that's when, a number of people weren't able to do that. We weren't able to really gather together and celebrate or just be amongst each other just to have that human connection.
What do you think people did to alleviate some of the stress? What do you think that they did to numb the feelings they were having or to cope with the changes that were happening?
Yeah, I find that a number of people like try to look into or tap into resources that they already have. So one of them was like walking, especially during the nicer, warmer months, going out for a walk, being with nature, trying to get some fresh air as best as possible, whether that was alone or with, their household family. Some people engaged in art or music, listening to music. So they use these things as coping tools to kind of help them get through. Some people even phoned a friend. So they recognized that they couldn't necessarily be physically together, but that didn't mean that they couldn't connect somehow. So phoning a friend, utilizing resources such as Zoom, I think we've all really adjusted and adapted so well, because I remember hearing about Zoom, but not necessarily like utilizing to this capacity. So we've all like grown in that sense. But I find that people found different little ways of connecting in the best way possible.
Do you think some people did it in a negative type way? Do you think that they, like, say, for instance, by drinking a little more than they normally would do? Do you
Yeah.
do you think it caused disruptions in families? Because maybe some people, they didn't pull together, maybe they pulled apart.
Absolutely. I do find that because we were forced to really just stay and settle where we were, like in our households, it did bring up a lot of emotions, a lot of tension. Um, I've heard a number of people who have increased in, drinking more alcohol or drug use during the pandemic. And that, definitely impacted their own mental health, or even just families who may not have had a chance to really, I guess, be amongst each other and address certain problems. It was almost like forced to do that because they were all in the same setting, trying to do their own things, whether it's school, work, and what have you. And it did bring up a lot of issues in terms of like family dynamics and how they interact with one another. I remember even hearing statistics about how domestic violence did increase during the pandemic as well. Once again, because we were forced to be in our homes for such a long duration of time.
Do you think that how do you think it impacted children?
Yeah, for children, I want to say the disruption in their routine was such a big thing. So routine meaning like just even simply going to school. They, whether they enjoy it or not, it's something that they got used to doing, going into the building for school, possibly doing extracurricular activities, meeting up for play dates. So the fact that they weren't able to do that for an extended amount of time really impacted them. I've even heard some children just mention how they like miss being with their friends, or just had even a hard time connecting and making friends virtually because they were doing such remote learning, especially when it came to someone who may have moved during the pandemic and had to start a new school environment, or maybe had just gone up another grade level and now trying to adjust and adapt to their own, I guess, bodily changes, especially as preteens who encounter so many different changes biologically. They're looking for, that connection, creating their own groups of social environments and communities. And the fact that they weren't able to do that in like a normal setting and environment was a bit challenging for them. And I'm finding that because now that people are back in school and we're, adjusting to this new normal, I'm hearing a number of people, especially students, are having difficulty regulating their emotions. They don't really know how to interact with one another. If you look at, the 2 years or the span of the pandemic, let's say, for example, someone who was a sixth grader during the beginning of the pandemic ended up being basically almost like an eighth grader at that point of being back in school. And if you look at that duration, you're not the same person that you were as a sixth grader. So having to adjust and adapt to learning how to interact with one another. And I think that alone has been one of the biggest challenges for a lot of students and youth.
If someone came to your organization because of, help dealing and coping with all of this and trying to make it through, what would you recommend that they do?
I think I would recommend them for one, I would commend them for actually coming to our organization. I think sometimes just recognizing as people of many different races and ethnic backgrounds, we have our own idea of what mental health is. And the fact that you're reaching out for help is such a big plus. Like just admitting that, hey, I need some help, I'm going to reach out for that. I would just commend them for it. And then I would also like ask if they're willing to either meet with myself or even speak with a counselor or therapist. Is that something that they would like to do? Oftentimes I like to tell people when it comes to mental health counseling, we do, of course, do the extensive work to get the degree and get to have that title, but we're not the experts. It's the individual that we're working with is the expert. So, just really working with them and seeing what they would like to do. What are some goals they would like to achieve and seeing how I could make those connections, help them make those connections.
Because different people have different needs, different experiences,
Absolutely.
and different ways to cope and different ways of thinking. So you have to have like an individual type plan, maybe a general outline, but it's something very focused on that particular person that comes to you.
Yes. And I find that for a number of people, some of them said, I don't know what to do to cope. And sometimes it's just starting off with asking, what have you done in the past to cope when you were facing a difficult situation? And that just starts a conversation for them to think, well, what have I done? And was that thing helpful or was it like negative? Like, was it something that, increased my feelings of worriness? So it just starts a conversation for them to really think about those things. And then we'll provide some new things of what's easily accessible for them to use.
Okay, well, thank you for coming on today.
So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm just glad you came because this is a very important topic that impacts so many different people. And to have someone who works in this particular field, who's trained, who has her educational background, formal training in this, and then you're applying it every day.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really hoping that this is helpful to someone out there.
Certainly helpful for me. So I'm sure it's going to help other people because we're all in this together. This pandemic, COVID-19, is affecting all of us.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think there's a slide that you want to put up.
Yes, if I'm able to.
Let's see if we can get that to happen.
Thank you so much. It's just with our contact information. That way people will have our website and will be able to reach us when necessary. Just bear with me as I get that up.
Sure. And while she's doing that, I'll just let you know again, this is Genaya Palmer. She is a team leader of the New Jersey Hope and Healing Crisis Counseling Program at the Mental Health Association.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So here, I just wanted to highlight our number. The best way to reach us is by phone, or even if you went to our webpage. So our phone number is 973-509-9777. You can receive some individual supportive counseling by reaching out to us. And for those who may just want some tips of how to really de-stress and practice some self-care, we have a number of Mindfulness Monday videos and even a few Mindfulness Monday virtual sessions coming up. So if you check out mhainspire.org, I'm sure you'll be able to find more information about how to really connect with us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. Okay, goodbye.
Bye.